It's like, how can I make software testing more fun so that it's more accessible to more people? Made me think, what if I compare it to something that is fun, like video games? And if you think about it, software testing and video games have a lot in common. For example, they both have levels. So, show of hands, who here has seen this diagram like it? Yeah? Cool. All right, so this is a software testing pyramid. This one was specifically designed by Water. They also developed a software testing tool called Cucumber, which we'll talk about in a second. So basically, any video game has different levels or areas that you need to get through in order to complete your quest or mission. Likewise, applications have different levels or different functionality that needs to be completed in order to fulfill its true purpose of providing value to our customer. So there are different types of tests that we execute or that we require in order to verify that our application does what we expect it to do. Now we're going to keep things simple and just focus on 4 main types of tests. These are automated unit tests, automated integration tests, automated end-to-end tests or automated UI tests, and manual exploratory tests or the all-seeing eye of exploratory testing. These are where the manual UI testers come in, and you guys are awesome. So a great place to start is at level 1, and that is at unit tests. So if you're just starting out writing code, or you come into a project that has really poor quality, and you want to improve it and have a great impact early on, this is a great place to start, because unit tests are the easiest to write, they're the easiest to debug, and they're the easiest to maintain long term. So a unit test just verifies that a small block of code does exactly what you expect it to. Sorry, I just noticed that. I need my water. It's way over here. Okay. So ideally, unit tests should take about 70% of your total automated tests, test suite. Who here has ever written a unit test? Okay, yeah, awesome. So if you are new to unit tests, if you want to think about them in video game terms, if you were to take the classic video game Super Mario Brothers, show of hands, who here has ever played Super Mario Brothers? Yeah, so if you were to take our protagonist, Mario, and put him in a room by himself, and then plug in a controller, what happens? What happens if you press the right arrow? Does he move right? What happens if you press the left arrow? I don't think he does anything, right? With the coin of that game. Press the up arrow, does he jump? Right arrow, does he scrunch down? What happens? So we're solely focused on the core functionality of a single method. We're not worried about how it interacts with anything else. We're just worried about the single encapsulated function. So here's a very simple unit test. Basically, we are declaring a variable and assigning it a value. At the end, we are expecting the variable to have a specific value. Another thing that video games and software testing have in common are items. So in-game, items are things that you would pick up along the way to help you on your journey. So these might be weapons, armor, magic items, potions, anything that will help you succeed. As you go through your story, you'll want to level up your items. By that, I mean you'll pick up new, more powerful items that will help you be more successful. If you're a level 20 fighter and you're still using the same rusty sword that you got when you first spawned in your very first dungeon, you're going to have a really hard time compared to if you were to get new powerful weapons as you progress along your journey. Likewise, along your testing journey, you're going to find different tools that will help you write better tests, help you maintain your tests, and just help improve your quality of your application overall. One of these testing tools is Jasmine. So this is a great tool to have in your arsenal. Show of hands, who here has used Jasmine before? Just me? Yeah, okay, I get to share the awesomeness of Jasmine. So Jasmine is a behavior-driven development framework for testing JavaScript code. Who here knows what behavior-driven development is, or BDD? Okay, so for those of you that don't know, behavior-driven development is an agile framework that was designed to help improve the collaboration of quality assurance analysts, business analysts, and non-technical stakeholders, and developers, of course. What I really love about Jasmine, and it's very intuitive, so if you're just starting out, it's very easy to understand. It also doesn't require a DOM to run your tests. Here is a very simple example of a Jasmine test. As you can see, we have a description. We're defining a variable. We have an it statement which defines your test. And we are assigning that variable a value. And then at the end, we are putting in our assertion or expectation, verifying that the variable has the value we expect it to. Another great testing tool is Karma. Who here has used Karma? Awesome, okay. So Karma is quite often used in tandem with Jasmine. So it is a test runner as opposed to a testing framework. It spawns up a web server that allows you to execute your tests. And it can be kicked off from any command line, terminal, or IDE of your choice. And it can be configured via config file. So this is the basic test runner that comes with Karma. So as you can see, it's running the tests in your suite that you specified, tells you how many run, how many failed, how many passed, and how long it took to run these tests. Now, Karma, like I think all of the tools that I talk about today, are either open source or free to use. And one of the great things about open source development is that people from the community add to it just for funsies. So this is a custom Karma runner, who's just super cute and colorful, and I love him. So as you can see, it gives some of the same statistics, such as test ran, which passed, which failed, and also which ones ignored. So less people have written unit tests, but it is a common thing where you might be focused on a specific test that you might comment out or ignore other tests, and that can cause your total code coverage to go down. When you do that, a lot of people might get very angry with you, so it's good to see in an easy to see way like this, his eyes wide open, tells you that you have tests ignored, which is really useful when you're trying to figure out why your stuff is failing. Another great thing about Karma is the built-in code coverage report. So this is really nice. Even if you're a tester that doesn't write code, you can sometimes see these reports, or sometimes they'll have these reports shared out on like an information radiator. Does everyone know what I say when I say information radiator? Okay, so in case you don't, information radiator is just a common place that's easily visible, where a lot of times management likes to put nice shiny reports or just display out information that's easy to understand. So this is really great because you can run your test locally, and then you can look at it and see exactly by file what your code coverage is. You can see statement coverage, branch coverage, line coverage. And if you want to get into the nitty-gritty to see exactly what is covered and what isn't, you can click into the file and see line by line. If something isn't covered, it'll be in red. So another tool that is super useful is Cucumber. Who here has used Cucumber? You did a talk on it once, didn't you? I feel like you did several years ago, and I was like, that guy's super smart. Yeah, so you could totally do a whole talk just on any of these tools, especially Cucumber. It's another behavior-driven development tool, and it's specifically designed for shareholders to be able to read. This uses the gherkin syntax. Here is a very simple example. So as you can see, we're just defining the feature with a very simple description of what this feature will do. We're giving a scenario and then a given, when, then. Who here has used the given, when, then syntax for writing your tests? Yeah. So if you haven't used given, when, then, it is a very common way to write your tests, whether you're doing automated or manual tests. This is especially helpful when you're trying to divvy out multiple tests for different complex functionalities to figure out which specific test will cover which branch in your logic, so to speak. So you'll find as you're writing your tests or you're going through your manual testing, there's a lot of repetition. You know, you're writing your tests or you're setting up your test data, you're going through your test, you're making sure whether it it passes or fails, and you're doing it over and over again, and it can get kind of monotonous. In video game terms, we call this the grind. So basically, you're slowly improving your skill. Whether you're slowly sneaking on something or improving your two-handed fighting, it can get really tedious just grinding through. But these are small repetitive actions that can really pay off in the long run. Okay, so we're on to level 2. So you've ground up and improved your skills. You picked up some items and you've gotten through level 1. Now we're on to level 2, which is integration tests. So this is where things can get kind of tricky. There are multiple ways that you could specify these out. Just like in a video game where, depending on what type of game you're playing, you might have an open world experience where you can go forth and conquer the whole world, or you might still be stuck on a straight storyline. Just like that, there's different ways to separate out different types of integration tests. To keep things simple, we'll focus on 3 main ones: unit integration, API integration, and external system integration. So for our previous example of unit tests, we put Mario in a box and saw what he did when we pressed buttons. For this example, for unit integration tests, we want to see how 2 different units interact. So we put Mario in with a Goomba on the screen. What happens when Mario jumps on a Goomba? What happens when Mario walks into a Goomba? What happens when a Goomba walks into Mario? So as you can see, we're not concerned about every possible action that each one can take independently, only with how they interact with each other. Does this make sense? Cool. Okay. Okay, show of hands, who knows what this is? Yeah, okay, Stardew Valley, okay. So this is a really awesome game. Traditionally, it's a single player game, but they introduced a multiplayer mode, so we'll be referencing that for this example. API integration tests are a little more complex because there's more functionality available for you to test. Just like in a multiplayer game, such as Stardew Valley, there are multiple options that each character can take. Bless you. So what happens if you are planting a crop? Can your buddy, who's on the same server as you, come in and harvest that crop? What happens if you create an item, or they create an item, and put it in a chest? Can you pick it up? Can they pick it up? Can they water a plant that you planted? So as you can see, we're not focused on every single possibility, only on what happens when the 2 interact with each other or impact the same environment that could have downstream effects for the other. External system integration. So a good way to think of, who has ever seen this screen? External system integration for 360? Okay, so a good way to think about it is cloud storage, right? So what happens if you are playing a video game and you want to save it to the cloud? Does it save automatically, or do you have to go through and manually save it? What happens if you want to save it and it doesn't save? What happens if the service is down? Do you get a proper error message, or does it fail silently? Does it shut down your computer? What happens if you do save successfully and then you get on another device with that same account? Are you able to pick up your game? Are you able to see your game? What happens? So we are relying on this external system to provide the functionality that we want for our application. So we're not focused on all of the functionality of our application or all of the functionality of the other application, only on what we rely on. So here's a very simple integration test. As you can see, we have two different methods that we are calling. And then at the end, we expect a variable to have a value that we expect. All right, power-ups. So here's another thing that software testing and video games have in common. So power-ups are things like usually items that you can pick up in a game that automatically make you a better character or improve your natural abilities. Sometimes even give you new abilities. These could be things like mushrooms or flowers or stars. In real life, power-ups can be tips and techniques that you pick up that help you be a better tester or developer. You can find these lots of different ways. Twitter was one we mentioned earlier. Another one would be code review. Who here has ever participated in a code review? Okay, if your developers do them, I highly recommend them because you will learn a lot about the way your developers think. And sometimes it makes it easier to catch what bugs might be introduced before they're even introduced, because you can see their common ways of thinking about things. You can also catch like obvious typos before they even get into your environment, which is nice. Another way is a test plan review. Who here has ever done a test plan review? Cool, okay. So if you're on a team of testers or on a development team that does test plan reviews, you can write your test plans up and submit them, and then you can have them critiqued before you even execute your test to see either if you've missed some testing scenarios or if you made some assumptions about functionality that perhaps weren't right, or maybe if you thought of testing scenarios that your developers didn't. So it can help you eliminate bugs early on in the cycle just by doing that. Another great place to find power-ups is white papers or articles written by other experts in your field. Cool. All right, so we got through levels 1 and 2, picked up some power-ups, ground through some skills. Now we're on to level 3, which is automated UI tests. So this should be the smallest category of automated tests in your test suite. These are designed to be run in browsers or on devices, and they're used to catch UI bugs. The reason they're meant to be the smallest category is these are the hardest to write, the hardest to debug, and the hardest to maintain, and they take the most amount of time, usually. They are very much worth it, though, because you'll be able to catch UI bugs that you wouldn't have been able to catch with your other types of testing. One way to think of automated UI tests in video game terms is character creation. So what happens if you're, who here has ever played this game or knows what this game is? Yeah, okay, so this is the game Destiny. So if you're creating a character and you get this fun screen of creating and customizing your character, and then you change the eye color, what happens? What happens if you change the size of the notes to make the smallest setting? What happens if you change all the settings to the smallest size or the largest size? How does your character look standing still? How does it look moving around or running or sitting or dancing? I don't know why they would, but maybe they would. Is it a cohesive character? Does the UI look right? Or is it pixelated? Is it jumbled? Are you missing areas that are blocked out, or are your arms all crazy? So for this example, you're just trying to figure out, like, how does the UI work and what experience will your customers have using your product? So this is a very simple example of an automated UI test. So with an automated UI test, there's basically 3 steps. You want to navigate to your application in some way. You want to interact with it in some way. And you want to verify that the functionality that you expect does work the way you expect it to. So a very important and popular testing tool that's used for automated UI testing is Selenium. So show of hands, who here has ever used Selenium? Yep. So this is actually a suite of tools. It is supported and supports multiple browsers and operating systems. It supports multiple operating languages and multiple testing frameworks. And it is the core technology and countless other automation tools. One such tool is Protractor. So who here has ever used Protractor? Yeah. So Protractor is what we call a Selenium wrapper because it uses Selenium-based code as the starting place for its application or tool. It is for Angular and Angular JavaScript apps. I really like it because I like to run Protractor tests in multiple browsers at the same time, so either different browsers as well as maybe the same browser such as Chrome and different resolutions at the same time. It saves time on testing, and then it helps you test things like responsive design for your application. Another testing tool is Appium. So Protractor was for web apps. Appium is specifically for native apps. Who here has ever used Appium? Okay, that's cool. So this allows you to run native apps on multiple physical devices at once. So a lot of big companies such as Google or Amazon, they have things called a device wall. So they will actually buy and ship in the most popular physical devices used by their customers, and they will mount them on a wall. They'll then write their tests, and then they will push out their tests and run all of their tests on different devices at the same time to see real time how the functionality works on their different devices. Now, obviously, not all companies have the budget for that or the time. So there's different services you can use. You can use emulators or simulators to run those. Oh, sorry, I thought you had a question. To run your tests there. Or you can actually rent out a device lab or devices across the world. There's different companies, I forgot the names of them, but they have physical devices and you can just send them your tests and they will run them on the devices for you and send you back the results. So one of the best things about software testing and video games is replayability. So the best video games you can replay over and over again, usually with a combination of character options and different character plots different plot options built into the game. So the best thing about automated UI tests and any other automated test is that you can replay them over and over again. So you can click a button once after you make a change and verify that nothing has broken that you know of. Unlike with an automated UI test, unlike with manual testing where you have to make a change and you would have to go through and click the buttons and type in the words every time you make a change just to verify that you didn't break anything. So it saves you a lot of time and energy just being able to automate things. So this is my favorite part, is exploratory testing. So who here knows what I mean when I say exploratory testing? Yeah, okay. So if you don't know what exploratory testing is, basically you're going through and you're exploring. Basically you don't have a set test plan. You just have ideas in your head that you want to try, whether you're cornering edge cases. Who here knows what that means? Okay, so you know what edge cases are, right? So edge case is like weird, off the path scenario. It's not usually, it's not what you would usually think of when you think of a specific logic, like why would you input a number less than 0 for a cache amount? You know, that might be an edge case for a scenario. So you're basically putting one or more edge cases together to corner them and to see what craziness ensues. So show of hands, who knows what this video game is? Yeah, Skyrim. So it's kind of like that. You want to go up and you want to put in your crazy stuff and see if you can break the game or break your application, like in a controlled, productive way, of course. One of my favorite tools for that is Bug Magnet. So Bug Magnet is a browser extension that's free for Firefox and Chrome. And it basically allows you to right-click on any field, usually a text field, and it will provide you a list of options that you might not have thought about. So here's an example of it. So as you can see, I just went to Google and right-clicked on the search field and chose names and Latin character sets. Gave me a whole bunch of options like Irish names, nicknames with quotes, Spanish names, French names, Icelandic names. So something you might not thought about on your own, but your customers might have these different symbols in their names that you might need to account for in your application. Another tool that I really love is the One Generator. So this application allows you to create a custom dashboard of different randomizers. It can randomize numbers, text, dates, addresses, a whole bunch of popular stuff that you might need for creating test data. So here's a sample dashboard that I created for an application I was testing. So as you can see, I have an SSN generator, name, birthday, credit card, paragraphs, full address, numbers. So just about anything you can think of, you can generate here in one place. Another testing tool is Chrome DevTools. So this one's kind of a given. I feel like we could do a talk just on Chrome DevTools and how many awesome testing tools are built into it. Some of my favorite are the Inspect, which allows you to see your HTML markup and which CSS properties are in play to figure out for debugging front-end development issues. There's also a way, I'll just point at it, a way to resize your screen easily for web accessibility and for different responsiveness that you need to account for. Oh, and audits. Audits is something I just heard about with Lighthouse. I had just never used it before like last week. So it allows you to do an audit of your web application and recommends different things you can do to improve the accessibility and the performance of your web application. This is personally my favorite view for testing. It is the Network tab, which allows you to see which calls are going back and forth between your server and your client. It tells you what your statuses are that you're getting back, and then if you click on that, it will actually show you what data is coming back and in what format. So you can account for that for your front-end development. You can also see console stuff. So console's really great if you're debugging a web app and maybe something fails, but there's no error message being shown in the UI. A lot of times there'll actually be a hidden JavaScript error that's popping up in your console. My last testing tool are video game soundtracks. So I feel like this is a must. Good music is a must for any kind of testing, but especially manual testing. So some of my favorite video game soundtracks are Doom, Halo, Skyrim. If you're not into gaming, but you still want that like epic movie soundtrack kind of feel, there's different artists like Two Steps from Hell, Cell Dweller. Do you guys have any favorites? Yeah. Okay. Piano Guys are also good too. They have some geeky remixes that I like. So you can find them all throughout YouTube, Pandora. You can create a specific channel. I call it my Dragon Slaying channel on Pandora, where I just put all my epic music. And I feel pretty sweet when I do my exploratory testing. So I hope these tips and tricks have helped you level up your testing game. As always, this is just from my experience and things that I found to be helpful and make it just a little bit more fun. Again, my name is Meg, and this has been Adventures in Front-End Testing. Thank you. Right, any questions? I feel like I should have a cue card to be like, here's a question. Yeah.
I have two questions.
Sure.
One is back on slide 8,
Okay.
and you were showing the interactive screen there, back with the console messages. I missed what tool that is.
This is Chrome DevTools.
No, the next screen. That
Chrome
one.
DevTools.
Is that still okay? It's still within there.
Yep. So to access it, if you're on Windows, just press F12 while in Chrome, or if you're on Mac, you can right-click and then select inspect, and we'll open it up. Yep, and then as you can see, there's all the different options up top. You know, you have inspect, you have different device and screen resolutions options, elements, councils, sources, network performance, memory, application security, and then there's more beyond that. But yeah, I definitely recommend this because it is really great for, you know, just built in seeing what your application's doing on the front end.
I've heard it described. I haven't actually seen it, so
Yeah.
that was cool to see. Second question I have is, in your experience, where have you found in the left to right life cycle of development a best practice or more ideal place to insert exploratory testing, or, you know, getting your users and everybody in there just kind of banging away on it?
So I feel like I'm making some assumptions based on what you're asking, so I'll ask some clarifying questions. So you said a couple different things. You said exploratory testing and customers. When you say exploratory testing, are you thinking just like internal as far as on the development team and the tester team, or are you thinking like customer verification, like user acceptance testing type thing?
Not exactly UAT or acceptance testing, but occasionally there have been times where, you know, when you've got a significant change, but maybe you're trying to front load testing. I've seen where we're bringing in a couple of key users. Just what's the look and feel?
Okay.
Is there something that looks out of the ordinary? Say, for example, like an upgrade. You're doing a significant upgrade to something. You're not really making a lot of changes, but you have to make sure that it wires correctly to the plugins, in-stream, downstream, that kind of thing. So it might be advantageous to get users in there quickly in that scenario. So I know I mixed in a couple of terms, but I was curious on your experience, where have you found more of that exploratory testing, however you want to define it, as advantageous?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would first preface this with it. A big part of the answer comes with, you know, where your company culture is as far as software development maturity, as well as what software development model you're currently using. Are you waterfall, or are you more agile with getting that customer feedback sooner? I would recommend anytime you're making a huge change for an existing functionality where you're maybe doing like a version 2 of something, have the ability to toggle it. I feel like that will increase customer confidence a lot more when they feel that, you know, security blanket of being able to go back just in case. But I would say as soon as you feel comfortable with the product where you wouldn't be embarrassed by your customers looking at it, yes, I'm a big proponent of getting shifting testing left as much as possible, getting customer involved as soon as possible, getting that customer feedback, because the more you know and the more you're able to like step into your customer's shoes, the better you'll be able to provide them value with your product. Any other questions? Did that answer your question first off? Awesome. Okay, cool. Any other questions? Yeah. Yeah.
So along the lines of maturity and the software lifecycle, I was curious if you had any advice or resources to point us to kind of convince others of the wonderfulness of a lot of these tools. Because I think that's maybe the larger issue than actually using them, you know, from our own perspective.
No, that's fair. Yeah, good question. So like I said, a big part of it is corporate culture. I've been in a couple different companies now with very drastic different maturity life cycles. One was testers versus devs, waterfall. Another was agile, software and developers are best friends on the same team. So I would say starting with your developers and trying to shift that culture will go a far bigger way than you individually as testers improving just the maturity of your processes. Helping the overall process will have a much bigger impact downstream. There's a few different ways you can do that. So if your developers are game-minded, like they enjoy games, there's a few different activities you can do as a team to help illustrate so they can see firsthand how testing and shifting testing left will actually make their job easier, improve the quality, and make their job like faster. One of those is, my favorite is, what's that called? I just said it was my favorite and I forgot the name of it. It's the cubes that are strips, and then there's like three, and then you pull one out, and then you put one on top. Jenga, yes, thank you. Sorry, mind fart. Yeah, the Jenga game. So you can look it up, software testing, Jenga game. I've ran this one a few times, and it helped, especially developers that were like, why are we testing? Our stuff's good enough. Why don't you just trust us? Actually having them so my favorite way to do it is usually put the person that's the strongest antagonist towards testing, make them the tester, because they get to step into your shoes and see how difficult it is to very nicely say, this isn't up to snuff, please fix it, which can really change how they approach you in the future. It also helps them see like the different types of testing. You can do like pair testing, you can do after the fact testing, you can do TDD, see all the different ways and see how much faster it is to find the bugs and how much easier it is to fix the bugs by doing those different models. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think it's interesting that we have a lot of support for the testing. That's a
Oh,
relatively new department in
awesome.
University of Fort Worth here.
Mhm.
But we have a lot of support for it. I think the bigger thing is that even within our project, our developers say, hey, you're awesome, we love having you here. But going that extra step and showing some of these cool automated things, which is still newer to our university, would be neat. So I like your suggestion so far. And if there are any specific things, maybe even like selling points for these pieces of software that can really help people who have the purchasing power, look at it and say, yeah, this would be a cool idea for us to move forward with.
Okay. Yeah, so all the tools I showed today are free. So feel free to grab any of these and try them out. But I would suggest definitely as a starting point, unit tests for your developers if they're not already doing them. And also code reviews are drastically going to help and increase that feedback cycle.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool, thank you. Any other questions? Cool, well, thanks guys.